Hello and welcome everyone to Literature and Lunch on day 2. It's so nice to see all your beautiful faces. This mic is weird. Candace, can you hear me in the back?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to hold this a little farther away from my face. I don't need this silly mic. Do you need this mic? Take the mic. I'll need it. I can project, right? We have a theater background. This is what we do. We project. Okay, so I'm not going to talk long. I just wanted mainly to say a few words in thanks. Thank you, number one, to Ted Bartlett, Larry Wormington, and all of the amazing people at the Peauxdunque Review for being our partner since 2018 in this writing competition and making it happen. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And also, even though she's not here, hopefully she'll see this video. I really want to thank Patty Friedmann, after whom this writing competition is named. Patty is a local author. I first met her at Words and Music when it was directed by the Piratelli Faulkner Society. And Patty has believed in Words and Music and in me personally since I became the director. To the point that Patty's children have decided to support this competition in perpetuity for years to come in order to honor their mother. So thank you, Patty, thank you, Esme, thank you, Warner. Woo! I'm gonna get really choked up if I talk too long about how much it means to me that someone believes in us that much. So I'm gonna say that you can go on wordsandmusic.org and read all about Patty Friedmann and her writing career and her importance in New Orleans. And I'm just going to close by saying a little something that reminds me of her from E.B. White. Rarely does someone come along who's both a good friend and a good writer. But Patty, you're both. We love you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tad Bartlett to MC. He might need a mic.
I'm going to use the mic. If it's too loud, I'm sorry. And we're so excited to be finishing our 4th year or 5th year running the competition with y'all. I think that might be the 5th one. And just really, really excited about the quality of work that has been submitted to the competition. Each year, it just gets, we get more quantitatively, but qualitatively, this work just blows us away. And we are privileged to read it as it comes in, and privileged to be part of that very difficult decision process of calling it down to the finalists. And then we're also privileged to have wonderful final round judges for our poetry, short story, and creative nonfiction categories. And then we're just excited as an editorial board, particularly for our writing by public high school students category and for our Beyond the Bars category for incarcerated juveniles. Really, those are the 2 categories. I mean, I love you all, poets and short story writers and CNF writers, but we really do this for the joy and the fulfillment of the high school student category and the Beyond the Bars category in particular, because they both just show us the power and possibility of the written expression. So with that, I want to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with our creative nonfiction category, runner-up, and then our winner of that category. The runner-up is Anise Gross. She is going to be joining us on Zoom. I want to tell you a couple things about what our judge, Mike Adno, had to say about her work. I'm juggling too many screens. So Mike Adno was our CNF judge this year. He's a writer for the New York Times, National Geographic, Bitter Southerner. He's won a Beard Award for his essay writing. We're privileged to be able to work with somebody with his experience. And he had this to say about Dear Meth Heads, which is the runner-up piece by Anise Gross. He wrote, "Writing of unhappiness when every atom in your body is ill doesn't tend to work. It can be maudlin, nostalgic, or something like a dial tone. But in Dear Meth Heads, I found a story that reflected the not too often talked about humor of how boring unhappiness is. The story was self-aware and dark, funny, but so damn lonely. What I found moving was how disarming the turn in the piece was. Truly, I didn't see a story so somber ascending to such a particularly pleasant place, and that's the sort of work that edges toward magic in the reader's hands. Anise is a writer based in San Francisco. She's a member of the Ruby and the Writer's Grotto. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, the New Yorker, the San Francisco Chronicle, the Believer, the Guardian, and elsewhere, and we are super proud that her work will be featured in the Peauxdunque Review when we publish Dear Meth Heads in issue 8.
So the piece, as Tad mentioned, is titled Dear Meth Heads. In the mornings, we would wake up and stand in the Edwardian bay window, wearing our robes and addressing them as if addressing the nation. Those two words, Dear Meth Heads. What kind of people start their day this way? We'd say things like, Dear Meth Heads, good morning. What are you planning on doing today? Oh, right, staying home and getting high. That's what we thought. The Meth Heads were a gay male couple that lived in the apartment building across the courtyard, directly across from us on the top floor. The back sides of our buildings faced each other, like in the movie Rear Window. Their apartment was far away enough that we couldn't make out all of the details, but close enough that we could watch them moving around like figures in a dollhouse. I could see them drink water, put on their shirts, kiss one another, but I couldn't make out the writing on their shirts or what the large painting above their couch was of. It looked like some kind of seascape. From across the way, when I measured them with my fingers, they were about 3 inches tall. One of the meth heads was a tall blonde man, probably in his late 40s, with tan skin. His hair was spiked up on the top like it was at attention. We got the feeling he was the one on the lease, perhaps by the way he walked with such purpose, or perhaps because of his age. His boyfriend, a tall, lanky brunette, was much younger than he was, maybe 23, and he spent a lot of time walking around the apartment with his shirt off and sitting on the back steps smoking. We decided, with basically no evidence, that they were meth heads because of the way they sat and smoked something out of a pipe. They could have been smoking weed, anything really, but something about their industrious throughout the day said meth. Every morning, no matter how early I got up, they were always up before me, cleaning the windows, watering the plants, typing on their laptops, drinking coffee, which after a long series of weeks and months became very off-putting. I was always waking up late, hungover, around 10 in the morning, with an empty feeling of not wanting to do anything. And there they were, already doing things. It felt like they had accomplished so much, and I had accomplished so little. There was this feeling that they were always awake, that they never slept, that they would never go away. In the morning, we would sit in our apartment drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes. I could see the piles of ash left over from the night before. Sad reminders. I couldn't bring myself to do the dishes, and we would wait until we were starving to eat. My boyfriend would sit in the large brown velvet wingback armchair in the living room and read the paper, while I'd lie on the sage green couch looking up at the ceiling, pretending to work on my writing. Then at around noon, I'd have more coffee, maybe toast, and soak in the bath, where I often cried. My days never really began until around 2 in the afternoon. They watered their plants, which were everywhere. You could see their muscular arms reaching around the house, drawing back curtains, shaking out towels, pouring coffee into mugs. In our apartment, there were 2 plants struggling to stay alive. They were either too dry or waterlogged. One was a small little succulent that looked like a satellite dish, and the other a small fern. The 2 plants began to lean in towards one another, as if looking for a hug, as if seeking solace from our negligence. My boyfriend was unemployed and I was a graduate student, and yet we still couldn't manage to keep 2 small plants alive. The day would turn with the sun always setting behind the meth heads building, blaring it at us with radioed orange and pink, and then it would be night, darkness, when their apartment was lit up like a diorama against the sky. A great time to watch them. In the night, they would walk around shirtless, eating what I imagined were fancy meals and lighting candles. The inside of their apartment was really beautiful from this distance, with deep red walls, chandeliers, comfortable chairs, long wooden tables. They would entertain long, drawn-out evenings with one another, often stopping to kiss, and from what I could tell, there was no television in their house. We lived in the exact same kind of apartment as they did, a large Edwardian top floor in a building that looked exactly like theirs. I imagined that their layout was identical and that we occupied two sides of a mirror. When they disappeared into parts of their apartment where I couldn't see them, I knew where they were, in the bedroom, the hallway. I could see them inside of my mind moving around. Sometimes one of them stood in the window looking right into our apartment. It felt like they were looking right at us, and because we hated to live with the curtains drawn, in fact, we refused to, we just let them stare in at us. But it grew more and more on our nerves as the months went by. No one was going to tell us how to live. No one was going to dictate our lives. So instead, we started talking at them. All throughout the day and night, we would hear one another saying, "Dear meth heads, stop looking at us. Dear meth heads, get a job." Sometimes I would hear my boyfriend say those two words in the bathroom or the kitchen. We started to go insane. On occasion, we would even say it falling asleep. I found myself starting to say it outside of the house to anyone that bothered me in the world. I would say, "Dear meth head." Every single day we watched them in their industrious nothingness, eating, smoking, watering their plants, moving around their house like dolls in a play. Days, weeks, months, we spent staring at them saying, "Dear meth heads." But then one day, standing in the window, hiding behind my robe, watching one of them reading, I wondered, "Dear meth heads, is there something you want to say to us?" I wondered, after all of these endless days of watching them, addressing them, sometimes even yelling at them, if they had been talking to us as well, about us. And if they were, what were they saying? Could they tell from that distance, watching our own 3-inch figures, that we were profoundly unhappy? Did they stand in their window addressing us as unhappy couple? Did they say, "Dear unhappy couple, we can see you"? Did they address us separately? Did they say, "Dear girl of unhappy couple, we can see you doing dishes, reading alone. We can see you crying in the tub, even through the closed door. We watch your mascara run and run"? Did they say, "Dear man of unhappy couple, we can tell that you're unemployed and you drink too much and you snort cocaine off the coffee table when the girl is asleep and that you're trapped at the bottom of a well"? Did they say, "Dear unhappy couple, we know all the things you do and don't do and that your secret is safe with us"? Can you feel someone from a distance? Can you feel unhappiness from 50 feet away through glass lit up by lamps? Without seeing our faces clearly, the subtle expressions we gave one another, without hearing our voices and knowing what books we were reading, did they still know us? The more time passed, the more we felt like we couldn't do anything without them watching. We moved the chairs around in our apartment so that we would be out of their view. My boyfriend put his large brown wingback chair in the walk-in closet, and I started reading on the floor next to the space heater where I knew they couldn't see me. We determined at what hours the angle of the sun cast us in shadow, and it was during this time we moved freely as we liked. There were several glorious hours when the sun blared so hard against our windows that we knew all they saw was a blinding white light. Oh, the hours in which we were fully hidden. We debated whether or not to put a sign in the window telling them to leave us alone. We lost our minds. I remember the disdain with which we addressed them. Something about us calling them meth heads made us feel better than them, even though between the two of us we drank and smoked and did cocaine. But here's what I actually observed. They ate regular meals, and they always ate sitting down, never standing up or rushed at the stove, and they took their time with everything. They would often stop to hug one another. We never hugged each other, unless it was something we had to do to keep the other one alive. They lit candles at night. We turned out our lamps. They lived shirtless and pantless, and we hid behind our robes. And we were at the bottom of a deep well. We were so unhappy that we were unable to even look at each other on some days. Did they know this about us? I thought this was our dark secret, that our unhappiness was contained from the world like a controlled virus in a lab. But perhaps they knew. When we stood in the window giving our morning address as if to the nation, when we said those words, who did we think we were? Who do we think we were fooling? One day in August, probably in a moment of looking for happiness, we went up onto our roof to have a glass of wine. We'd never been on the roof before in the entire time of living there. There was a staircase inside of our building that led up a tiny hallway, at the end of which was a door to the roof. We opened the door, and there we were on the gravel rooftop. You could see the whole of San Francisco from there. The view stretched out over the entire city, financial district buildings standing up like little Bic lighters, the 2 orange shoulder blades of the Golden Gate Bridge, the whole green swatch of Golden Gate Park fanning out to the ocean. The New de Young Museum like a large copper ballerina twisting up into the sky. That air was the perfect cool degree that makes you feel alive. And it was quiet out. We could hear the trees on our street rustling and the low sound of cars like the drone of the ocean. We were looking out at the city with our backs to the meth head's apartment. It was then that we heard a window open behind us. We paused before turning around. When we got the courage to turn, we saw the blonde man of the meth heads waving at us. I stopped, frozen, and looked at my boyfriend. Oh no, I thought. He's going to say something to us. And he did. He said, hello. We just waved back, petrified, stunned. Neither of us could move. Now here we were exposed, and I could see his face more clearly, leaning out of the window. Finally, you came out, he yelled across the courtyard. I didn't know what to say. My boyfriend yelled, yeah. And then the meth head said this. You just walked out of the door to heaven. I looked at my boyfriend. What is he talking about? I whispered. The meth head could see that we had no idea what he meant. Look, over there to your left, he yelled. We turned to see what it is that he's talking about. We see what it was the meth heads had been staring at the entire time we thought they were looking at us in our apartment. What we see is a door against the sky, the door we walked out of onto the roof. It's a small illusion. The door frame has little triangular slides that slope into the building so that it looks as though there's nothing to its sides. From their view, what they see is just a simple door frame drawn against the blue sky, like a doorway to heaven. This whole time, they had just been staring at it, waiting for it to open. And then we, of all people, came out of it. The people who had been callously saying dear meth heads every morning and night. We, the people who had spent a year hating them, praying they'd go away. We were the magical people who came out of the door to heaven. They'd been waiting for us. To them, we were angels. Anyone could have walked out of that door, but on that day it was us. We turned back to face him, no longer behind glass, out in the open now, exposed. He could see our faces, and we could see his. His eyes were bright blue, and he was smiling at us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anise, and I'm glad that you were able to join us. That was just wonderful. Nick Robinson joins us. He's our winner of the CNF category, and Mike Adner had this to say about Nick's piece, Visiting Mama. In Visiting Mama, the levity and clarity that belonged to the writer were something I found especially thoughtful, especially when writing a family. What was there was eloquent. What wasn't was critical. And after reading it, I felt compelled to know more, listen to what they had to say, and only hoped to read more of their work. Purposeful felt right in describing the work, but meaningful did too. All I know is they took an awful mystery, loss, along with love, and shaped it into something beautiful. So Nick grew up in Junior Village, a notorious DC government-run orphanage that was the oldest and largest institution of its kind in America. He dropped out of high school in the 9th grade, earned a GED, and then graduated with honors from the University of DC. An alumnus of the creative writing programs at Florida Atlantic University, where he got his MFA in 2009, and the University of Missouri, where he was the Original Nonfiction Fellow and got a PhD in 2016. Nick's work has been recognized by more than 24 literary journals just over the past 36 months, including Peauxdunque Review, because an earlier piece was a runner-up in a previous year. His career is just really kind of taking off here. He has book chapters from this memoir published in Southeast Review, New Ohio Review, Iron Horse Literary Review, Peauxdunque Review, Memoir Magazine, SFWP Quarterly, and elsewhere. So Nick, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. is it okay if I share my screen, Tad?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen right now and let me know if you can see it. So I want to thank you for that introduction, Tad. I want to thank Mike. And Anise, thank you so much for that terrific reading. It was really, really wonderful. So I'm Nick. I'm going to be reading Visiting Mama. That's the latest chapter from my in progress coming of age memoir, Our Institutions. And what you need to know, the mother, Madeline or Chi-Chi, of the two children, Nikki and his sister, has recently been committed to a mental asylum. The children are staying with their mother's parents, their grandparents, the Cavososes. With that, Visiting Mama.
We don't, I'm not seeing the screen share.
Oh, okay, I have it up here. Let's see. Okay, I'm sharing my, okay, I see what the problem is. The problem is me, as usual. Okay, can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back. And I'm just gonna start now. Visiting Mama. Granddad Cavosos did not drive what he said was his usual Sunday scenic route through downtown DC and past the sign-shaking Vietnam protesters fronting LBJ's White House. Instead, he hooked a right from Randolph Place onto North Capitol Street. We motored over the 11th Street Bridge and past groups huddled around bus stops and streaming from Catholic and Baptist and AME churches. My 6-year-old sister Cookie stared out at the hubbub. Because no single thing would hold still in my 8-year-old head, I clenched my eyes and studied the glowing red of my inner eyelids. That winter morning of 1964, during Cookie's and my first visit to Mama's new home, my grandparents seemed in high spirits. Granddad whistled affably while Grandma tripped over her skinny lips. Way back when, it was called the Government Hospital for the Insane, she said. Your mama's doctor said it was the world's first and largest. Over 100,000 locked away. All types of crazy I never even heard of. Manic depressive and phobic, psychotics, paranoids and schizophrenics. She sounded out dissociative sickness. What kind of sick is Mama? I asked. If Grandma heard me, she didn't acknowledge it. The doctors give him counseling, but if you ask me, ain't no way to fix him. As we approached a sun-blazed entry, she sighed. He said they can't get enough nurses or doctors. Must be why them nut jobs is all nasty and beat up the way they is. At a gate set into a ribbon of 12-foot high brick wall, a weathered bronze plaque announced St. Elizabeth's Hospital, established 1855. Behind the gate, carved paths crisscrossed a vast assembly of snow-laden buildings. There was something unexpectedly Oz-like about the frosted village behind the forbidding wall. But I was so amped up, Mama was all I could think about. The four of us marched up the snowflake-covered walkway as I took in Mama's home. Like many of St. Elizabeth's buildings, hers was red brick, stacked Gothic. The structure had a tall center turret sandwiched between two smaller towers, a forbidding fortress. In the enormous lobby, the guard looked up from his jet magazine. After registering our names, he nodded at an antique elevator. We jerked and juddered up, then spilled into a cube of a hallway. A small rectangular wall sign read, Ward 3. Granddad pushed the single button set into the frame of the windowless door, and we waited. My stomach shrank, prompted by a fecal odor mixed with urine and pine sol. The biotic stench crept beneath the door along with the sounds of screams and manic laughter, igniting a fear in me that persisted through the clanking of the lock turning and the heavy door swinging open. We were greeted by a half circle of adults settling in to watch some unintentional theater, faces expressionless or smeared with laughter or sorrow, old, young, male, female faces, Caucasians and Black folk, all sporting pale green hospital gowns. The door opener, a wet, sand-colored man with orderly in charge sewn across the breast of his white jacket, shooed the group. Going back to your business or you ain't getting no cigarettes. As the group scattered, I took in the cavernous room in which we were standing. To the front and right sat a chest-high counter behind which the two other white jackets casually lounged. The very casualness of those uniformed men in that chaotic setting exuded a certain authority. The nearest white jacket nodded toward a corner where sunlight pushing through a barred window illuminated a ratty brown Davenport and matching easy chair. That part of the room lay before a long hallway punched with cave-like doorways. When Mama emerged from one of the caves, the orderly in charge was guiding her, his knobby fingers encircling Mama's pale, slender arm as she shuffled toward us in a gait different from the light prance we'd known. Her chestnut hair was electric looking. Her pale skin was paler. The same green hospital gown, tie strings dangling over exposed buttocks, hung from her thinner than usual frame. Mama's typically animated face was as expressionless as the one on a nickel. Incredible because it's difficult to convey how this could be true. Mama was still beautiful. What was beautiful about Mama was the stately manner with which she tried to right herself when she stumbled, and how she struggled to keep her sagging head erect. The way she maintained the slipping gown on her still elegant shoulders. Mama was beautiful in the way that she, in spite of the conditions, tried to maintain dignity and a sense of independence. Madeline, you be good, the orderly said with a plugged-in sort of grin. I'll be back to get you in a few. He winked familiarly at her, then us, before turning and joining the other white jackets. Cookie threw her head and shoulders into Mama. Mama, Mommy. A grimace in her typically sturdy voice, Grandma barked, Chi-Chi, why you walk around here half naked like you ain't got no home training? Sturdy because strength was the backbone of Grandma's existence. Life is hard. You got to be hard back at it, was her credo. Persistently angry at her daughter's unforgivable illness, Grandma seemed to have forgotten her caution about the antipsychotics and electric shock involved in Mama's treatment. Throughout the orderly's instructions, Cookie's hugging and crying and Grandma's chiding, Mama stood immobile, as if an invisible membrane sheltered her from the surrounding chaos. Perched at the edge of the easy chair, I watched, torn between wanting to run from Mama and needing to bury my face in her small bosom. This was when Mama looked up and her eyes locked with mine. Her anxious but steady gaze shifted down to where Cookie clutched at her gown. Hi, babies. Mama muttered, her voice soft and garbled. So it's been a year, and the children have only visited their mother a few times. Nicky is now 9 and sees himself as changed, more mature. The mother has also changed. When we'd first visited Mama, I barely contained my excitement. Lately, as visiting day approached, anxiety built through the weekend and then during the Sunday drive. By the time we topped the crest, my apprehension was unbearable. The mama who emerged from the doorway on this visit was escorted by the same orderly. In the frank fluorescent light, Mama grinned widely when she saw us. Abruptly, like a page ripped from a comic book, Mama seemed changed, an imperfect version of her year younger self. Why hadn't she wiped the rivulets of sweat from her forehead and from the short, dark hairs growing above her lip? When Mama squeezed me tight, hot stink rose from her armpits. "My baby," she sang and squeezed me closer. As Cookie tearfully hugged what was left of her, Mama announced to the group clotting around us, "Everybody, this here's my 9-year-old, Nicky. Ain't he a doll?" Cookie's face, inches below mine, was scarlet with love. But this day, I burned with humiliation. Our Mama at home in the ward. I felt the weight of her insanity, her speaking to the crazies as if they were extended family at a backyard barbecue or cheerful neighbors dropping by. I could hear the orderlies chortling. I pulled from Mama's grasp and away from the swarm. "Grandma, can I wait downstairs?" "What's wrong with you, boy? Go be with your mama." I glanced around. Mama was busy introducing Cookie to a group of crazies. When she threw back her curls and loosed a wild laugh, I could see a pink, fleshy teardrop at the back of her throat. "Stop," I wanted to shout at Mama. "Stop that nonsense." Instead, I turned away, mortified. Mama was locked away in this place. I burned at the sight of her, treated like a mad woman by people who knew about these sorts of things, and at the prospect of these people seeing me the same way. How could she have done this to herself and to us? How could she have tried to die? "She didn't mean it," Cookie said, as if responding to my desire to leave. Cookie could always read my expressions, could almost read my mind. She still believed in Mama. A year older and wiser, I knew better. Just turned 9, I understood suicide. I'd made meaning for my earlier memories of Mama, body and bones and bra and slip at an odd angle off the side of the unmade bed, laid flat as a playing card on the bathroom tile, empty prescription bottle clasped in her hand. Incidents we kept close because, as Mama said, our problems ain't nobody's business. Images sealed in stereoscope, me dialing 0 for operator, confused Cookie and me watching the sirening ambulance whisk Mama away. That evening, eyes riveted to my face as if reading the pain in my eyes, Cookie stammered, "She didn't actually do it." But Mama had tried. Because of luck or circumstance or ineptitude, she had not been successful courting death. But what if she had been? I sometimes wondered why Mama had not done what all the lowliest creatures on the planet did every day: fight to live. As if performing another of her mind reading stunts, Cookie stuttered, "My mama's better. She ain't gonna try again." Taking in my change of expression, "Mama loves us," Cookie said. Then glancing over at Mama, "She loves you more than me." It seemed eons later when the orderly in charge slanting toward us said through his plugged-in grin, "About that time, family, 1 hour's the rule." Mama mumbled something back. "What'd you say, Madeline? I didn't hear you." Mama repeated herself, but with something more and something else in her voice. I set myself forward to catch her words. "Excuse me, sir. Did you take your turn with me yet?" she said, eyes wide, innocent. With Mama's risen voice, an unnatural quiet seemed to descend upon the room. The ward's whole voltage changed. The orderly paused as if he was picturing what Mama was saying. Shaking his head and laughing nervously, he said, "Madeline, what you talking about?" "You know, taking your turn," Mama replied, replying herself into boldness. "Why you gonna ask me something like that?" hissed the orderly, abruptly looking around at us, her family, his shoulders shrugging as if to say, "Ain't she crazy?" As if he wanted to beat the idea of Mama's craziness upside our heads. "Madeline, you're gonna give folks the wrong impression." Granddad and Grandma stared, at first puzzled, until embarrassment crept fully across their faces. They never said or did anything. They did not say or do anything. "What?" I asked, elbowing Cookie. "What?" Cookie said to me. Looking back, I might have seen the nature of it in their eyes. The orderlies, greedy, eager, and behind Mama's wide open gates, a combination of fear and shock. She had stepped into a land only she knew, or so it seemed to me. We were still watching, lips pressed together in a flat line as the orderly pulled Mama to her feet. Then gripping her slender arm, the orderly half walked, half dragged Mama down the darkened hall. Dry-eyed, the silent ride home, I relived images of the orderly dragging Mama, her body light, almost substanceless, as if she was not really there. My spirit aggrieved was revisited with shame. What Mama said, and we left her behind? Wrapping my arms around myself, I felt my blood racing, rivulets trapped underground, fed by the indefinable happenings between the sand-colored man and Mama. Fidgeting, my hands slapped and punched the dry leather seats. The inside of the car was inhumanly hot. I watched a bud of guilt flower and then fly around the cramped interior of the hurtling automobile and through the rear window. Watched it rise in the darkened sky and wing round the city before wheeling back to earth where it circled, then re-entered the car. I felt the guilt anchor itself within me, saw it settle into the furrowing, brows and pursed lips of grandma and granddad Cavosos, and even lay itself like a blanket onto the clenched frame of 7-year-old Cookie, who pretended to sleep.
Thank you so much, Nick. Just very beautiful work, and all the work in this memoir, that the work I've gotten to see, really great, and looking forward to the whole thing being available.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right, we're going to move next to our Beyond the Bars category. This, as I said earlier, this really is one of the most fulfilling categories that we do. And this is a category that's open to incarcerated juveniles nationwide. And our first year, there, a young man from an institution in New Mexico won. For the last few years, thanks to the heavy encouragement of Paige Gunter, who's a teacher at what's the Florida Parish's youth detention facility. We've seen tons of good work come out of this program, and both our winner and our runner-up this year come out of your class and out of this program. The winner in the category, Catrellon, was not able to be with us today because he's since gotten out. He's working offshore, and it's just really fantastic. Did great work. But we are honored to have the runner-up in the category with us here today, John Church. One of the things that I sort of put together a pastiche of the different comments that our editorial board had as we're going through the work. And for John's, it's a piece called When I Weep. We read it moves seamlessly between metaphor and concrete imagery to find the hope that can only come from inner strength, even in the face of doubt or antipathy from the writer's surroundings. So John, looking forward to having you share this with all of us. Thank you so much.
We saw it can do before I can sleep. I jump into a world of happiness, but this jump is too steep. Alone I lay in my bed until the monitor beeps. I feel alone, like I'm stuck on a cliff. I want to perform, but my legs are too stiff. Here I sit thinking of every shed tear, the ones I've been drowning in through the years. Pay attention, because life gets different when you're stuck behind a wall. I've been in this long enough. This is what I sound like breaking down. I'm in a messed up situation, but we won't hear a complaint come out of my mouth. I've got too much going on in my head. I hope God can help me clear. I've been telling him about my problems, but sometimes I wonder if he can hear me. I'm on the phone with my mom and she says my name and my eyes get teary. The judge thinks I'm just a part of the system. They put me in jail before I was even sentenced. They didn't even know the life that I was living. But they were trying to paint a picture of a menace that I don't have to worry because I know that my success is going to be tremendous.
Thank you so much, Paige. So now, yes, we're moving on to our poetry category. We're blessed to have our runner-up is here with us, Jenny Quito. Is Jenny? Oh, hi. Let me read. Our judge this year, final round judge, was Sky Jackson, who a lot of y'all here may be familiar with from the New Orleans writing community, but she's really just a fantastic poet who's all over with her work. And Sky had this to say about Jenny's runner-up work, which is called The Reason I Keep My Questions Between Dark and Dark. Sky wrote, "In this poem, the poet points us to an exquisite portrait of unrelenting grief and the speaker's fierce haunting. Their concerns about their mother's suicide attempt follows them as they fight for lives of strangers every day in the medical field. The speaker helps those who are suffering but cannot find their own peace or comfort. We see their intimate life and work clash like cymbals so wonderfully here as the poet makes one thing abundantly clear. You can run from your own problems and even hide at work from them, but they'll still find you every time." So Jenny comes to us from the MFA program at Ole Miss, and we're very excited to have you here with us today.
I brought my computer to read, so I might just sit and then set it aside, if that's all right. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. So writers always say that you never stop writing. So I actually workshopped this poem. It was the first poem I workshopped in graduate school. So the poem actually, it's very different now, but I'm so glad that it's been published in this iteration. So I'm going to go ahead and read as it's going to be published in the Peauxdunque Review. And then I was told I have 10 minutes, so I'm going to read one other poem that is in process right now. The reason I keep my questions between dark and dark. Tonight, after triple shifts, back to back to back. Each 12 hours, more like 13, even 15 on a triple shit, code gray shift with please don't quit pizza, courtesy of management, and a 30 fucking minute break unpaid. I have nothing left. No light left to count on. I work all daylight in midnight scrubs. I drive in the dark to and from this hospital of locked doors, walls of caked paint, chipped from yellow to blue to green bruises, and fluorescent lit floors the color of incarcerated brains. I break my back and heart to help. Per hospital policy, I ask 6, sometimes 9 psych patients a shift, the same series of stilted questions on repeat. Even between people, hospitals automate, assess, document, and dispense. Every answer must be yes, no, or measurable to matter. Are you having thoughts of suicide? Are you having any thoughts to hurt yourself or others? Are you hearing or seeing any hallucinations? Are you in any pain? How would you rate your pain from 0 to 10? 10 being the worst pain you have ever felt. They mostly answer no. But yes, and 10 to pain. Because maybe I can give them a tab of numb. No, and no, and no, and no, and pills are easier than anything else. Most of the patients are made of stories I can't tell you. They are too sad. There is nothing to learn from this kind of sad. I remember my mother and why I'm here to clock in and clock out of sad. And still, some nights, like tonight, I'm sick on sad. I drive there in the last hour of night, only to drive home in the first hour of the next wearing a heavy hood of what I do because of what darkness they can do. Thanks to HIPAA, I can't tell you who holds a knife over sleeping parents, who smashes a pan into mother's head, then when back on antipsychotics, bawls fisted tears as a social worker tells her, your mother died last night. Who tells us, without telling, of being raped. Who jumps from 4-story balcony and lives, half lives, whose 4th aborted suicide, 4th psychotic break, 4th detox, 4th 46B, 4th court-ordered psych ward stint will not be the last, far from the last, who can't move hand to lip because they lit kerosene to skin, who lunges into our nurses' station on Easter Sunday and whirls sociopathic Tasmanian devil, throwing chairs at nurses' heads, throwing nurses' heads to floor, punching a cornered nurses' temple against plexiglass. My young could have been dead temple. Who once he hits every person in the nurses' station calmly walks himself back into the day room, leaves the staff shocked, dumb, dazed, only to tell the charge nurse at debrief, You know I was teaching y'all a lesson, don't you? The lesson being, always give antisocial patients their Ativan. The lesson being, some cannot be helped today. Like those patients who spit N at my black coworkers, I will never write that bigot word in nursing notes, even in quotes, who spit N at my cocked white face in shock when I defend. There's a first for all in a psych hospital. Like the first time I watch a woman, a professor, a wife. I watch a new mother, a sick mother postpartum, a fugue from her first psychotic break. I watch her breast pump because the pump cord could be used as a noose. Because this woman doesn't know who she is, doesn't know what or when or where or how or why. But her breasts, melon heavy, she knows she needs to pump. And her whole body shakes whole body tears from her face. I hold her with my eyes as the pump chugs and hums what I cannot say without breaking. She smiles, a half-lucid moment. I smile back. She thanks me. Then I think of my mother and remember why I'm here every shift. How Mom couldn't speak one word for a week after coming home. But she gave me a bead she made in art therapy. No string, a ligature risk. Just a lone marble for me to hold and keep warm in my palm. Thank you. So this next one is a new poem I just wrote. It's called Another Month, Another Red Question. Every blood clot from between these lips I sit on is another breath less or lost, never from our making. I listen to the insect symphony recede with first light, wipe front to back. My eyes follow the flush of color, a blur of blood and waiting names that recede to for another month with water and the closed toilet seat. These names sound out our songs of ram or gem, though we dare not sing them yet. Their lyrics are dreams that fall from me with the speed of a silk slip. I wrap myself in a terry cloth robe the way I wanted Mother to hold me, the way I know I would cradle you and rock you, not the way I am now on the front porch with Matt still waking upstairs. I sit still and sip a cup of alchemy, which is my green tea, milk, and honey. I watch the day become from dew and soft sounds as a hummingbird hovers to drink from the spider lilies my Matt spotted just last week. 2 clusters of red, then 3, then more, in our field of green, wild and overgrown. To see this tiny, blur-winged bird drink from blooms as red as frank blood, how nature makes life's bud from life seem as effortless as months passing. This should be enough, shouldn't it? This hummingbird suckling from the center of this and that red, this should be my answer. Look, do you see it? The monarchs are mating like a waltz above me into the warm air. Thank you.
So the winner of the poetry category is Gaia Rajan. You are with us? Good, all right. So Sky had this to say about the winning poem, Killing It. In the poem Killing It, there is a palpable hunger. The piece itself vibrates with an undercurrent of rage along with an unmitigated desire. The speaker longs to be seen, wants more than this life has given them. They present the weight of their lineage as bootstrap royalty, giving readers a glimpse of a mythic and small-town American landscape that is rarely seen and even less understood. The details of the poem sing as the figures within the poem act out an almost gritty piety. The poet writes, "All my friends are bored." Well, I'm not going to spoil. I'm not going to say that line because that's it has to come in anyway.
Thank you.
The poet writes this really amazing line, and suddenly we can't help but believe what the speaker sees. Ultimately, the poet presents the sacred mundane of quiet desperation like a fiery preacher standing and stalking the congregation from the pulpit. We must sit with the piercing and precise weight of the message and catch every word like bread from the heavens as the poet leaves us in fervor for more. Gaia,
Thank you.
take it away.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. This is amazing. I think I'm going to read Killing It first, and then I'm going to read a couple poems from the chapbook that is also called Killing It. So yeah, this is Killing It. I'm from Ohio, and the entire book is about the violence of achievement. So yeah, title poem. Killing It. Sorry, I live in a house with people. Killing It. My folks say hoping's good, but it will never save you because in our Ohio, the best you'll get is broke televangelists and ravenous churches. My folks are bootstrap royalty, crisp in cuffed shirts and gold wedding rings that flash on a backhand slap. I was a prodigal daughter and then a prodigy, the child mothers prayed for. Spelling bee queen, good at silence. In town, they say we don't deserve our breath, but we call ourselves holy anyway, because even gods have short memories. All my friends are bored waitresses who fold tips in their skirts like scriptures and touch up-smudged lipstick at the altar of convenience store bathrooms. We line our cheeks with drive-through grease and never talk about our bodies. Wait in the back seat for a damp God. Like all good disciples, we are grateful for our unmaking. We neon, we bleeding, leaving one by one for the red-eye shift. I don't let things be fated in poems. My folks believe in lotteries, not failures. The opposite of dead is exemplary. They believe this every time they abandon me, kneeling at their beauty, their model, their myth. My folks know all that is holy is only a failure of distance. White man, far enough away, turns to God. Sometimes when people say I'm killing it, I remember everything exemplary I know or ever will traces back to a small girl on the floor praying, please, please, make them see me. That's Killing It. I think I'm going to read a couple more. Yeah, okay. This is my most recent published poem. It's called I Tried Everything, and it just came out in Best New Poets. So yeah, it's about my desperation after I left Ohio. I tried everything. Noise and spite and rock, bleach, black keys on the wrong beats, wrong chords, coward I was, inexact with my violences, writing quietly on buses until the memory changed. I stood at the hinges of conversation, not speaking except to agree or repeat my name, staring at strangers' perfect knuckles. I cradled a pigeon and dropped it into my bed. I cracked open a glow stick and drank what was inside. This looks like a movie, I thought. It was nothing like a movie. Fluorescent and sour, the flowers died in my absence. I rented a beater and drove until the rubber bounced off a nail. This feels like a prison, someone said in a movie. Nothing is like a prison. When I looked up, a Chuck E. Cheese had written outside, neon smug, new mulch. I don't know if this is a memory, but I remember it. I staggered in the corridor past shuddering horses, past strobe lights and wasps smashing out at that improbable green, dead wasps on the tile, the windows, the plastic flowers, their bodies, their bodies, their bodies. I ran until I ran into myself until I... That's how that one ends. I think I have time for one, maybe two more, so we'll see. Sure. This is a poem I wrote for my best friend. It's called Rights. You look so happy, your father will say after your first shift. You are good at being happy. You are 17, suddenly pretty. You understand how the world works. If you're good at school, you'll meet a boy in science club or orchestra, and if not, you'll meet him in the parking lot. You will like him because he does not know anything about you. You'll fuck for the first time in this field if it's still a field, and if by then it's a strip mall, you'll go to his car. You are good at being happy with usual men, their mediocre bodies. You'll visit him at the end of his minimum wage shift as a dishwasher, and his elbows will be soaked and soapy. He'll hug you, and it'll leave your back cold, like the idea of wings. He'll break up with you when you both get into college out of state, and you will not mourn. You will go to the DMV. You'll roll a cigarette on the sidewalk outside the DMV and light it with the lighter a girl you loved gave you for your 17th birthday. The girl will be named something white and usual. Susan, Alice, Emma. She'll have perfect pitch or a buzz cut. She'll be Asian like you. You will hate her, and if you finally realize you love her, she will die before you can say anything. If you do not realize you love her, then you will sit outside on the sidewalk outside a DMV and grind your cigarette butt into the pavement, and it will pop when extinguished, like the idea of fireworks. And you will drive away, and the cigarette will outlive you. Okay. I think I'm gonna do one more. We'll see. Okay. This is a little bit new, and yeah, I don't know. I've been very interested in my childhood. I don't know, like the weird inside-outside dichotomies that Anne Carson explores in Autobiography of Red, where it's just like, you know, like some internal parts of me felt very outward when I was a kid. So this is called Underworld. Jessica is my best friend, and she says maybe we can go to the 7th grade formal together if her mom says yes. She gives me her Mormon cross charm under the swings, and she has 4 lizards. Our one sleepover at her house, I was awake the whole time because the lizards kept rattling in their cages. Jessica talks for us both. It works because I want to be a poet, and she's going to be a movie star. She just got her appendix out, and she says I should too, so we can switch appendixes. Nothing that bad's ever really happened to me. Jessica says my heartbreak is psychosomatic. I say don't use words you don't know. My stomach starts to hurt every month, and by December, I've lost my perfect pitch. Elephant toothpaste crusts my bedroom door, and now, before I can fall asleep, I have to imagine Jessica's appendix in my stomach. I think I only want to wear big sunglasses. I only want to wear black sequins. I want to chop everyone I've loved in separate hallways. In June, Jessica and I stand at the edge of the road holding our thumbs out because Jessica says this is how you get to New York. She sticks her tongue out at passing drivers, and I say knock it off. 3 hours in, we smell fire, and then there's a car down the road. Smoke rising from its body, turning over and over on its belly like a seal. Yeah, do I have time for one more?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, cool. This is one of the closing poems of Killing It. I'm sorry, 1 second. Okay, great, perfect. This is called Prodigy. I grew up in the orchestra. Alice was better than all of us. The ache of it coming up white hot when she won an audition or booked front page on county news, everyone testifying that yes, we knew her. This town would be nothing without her. God, that girl, she was really something. She played violin, alone in that big house with a floral wallpaper and gold-framed Bible quotes where God preached himself like a sparrow in heat. I hid how I watched her, her bone fist, her misaligned jaw. She peeled glue from her fingers, punched her old man in the teeth, limped onto stage like an ugly cat, and when she spun her car into the lake, we mourned only the myth of her, playing Wagner, not smiling. Or Alice dancing in clothes she stole from her father, stumbling into the kitchen, some rock number on the radio, like the stale roar of a singer, knuckling her down and down into the passenger seat, her violin knocking in the trunk on the way to a concert. Her father, all dime store reverent when she played solo, quiet when she finished, the audience rising into prayers for daughters like her. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Gaia, for joining us. I know that we're dealing with like technological issues on this end, and it all has come out perfectly, and your timing has worked out perfectly, and your poems are wonderful. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I wish I was in New Orleans right now, but it's great to be here anyway.
We wish you were here too. All right, I'm going to move on to our category of writing by public high school students. This is an interesting evolution that has happened in this category. It was used to be just short stories by public high school students, and I'm not sure why. I think it's just how we inherited that category from the Faulkner Society when they were running the conference and the competition. But this year, for whatever reason, we saw probably about half the entries came in were poems, and I'm like, I'm not going to disqualify them just because they're poems. We'll put them all together. We'll call it Writing by Public High School Student, and we'll figure it out. And gosh, did we figure it out, because we just had beautiful short stories, like from our runner-up, Logan Meredith, and beautiful poetry, like from our winner, Maya Tobias, and y'all are in for a real treat. So first up will be the runner-up, Logan Meredith. She's a student at Peauxdunque High School, and she's going to read to us from her short story, It Lives There. We just felt, as an editorial board, that it was filled with great interiority and insight that would seem far beyond the years of the typical high school writer, elevating this piece beyond this category altogether.
Hi, thank you for having me. You all look very beautiful today. I'm going to be reading just an excerpt of It Lives There because it is 15 pages. I'm going to be reading 6 pages kind of right in the middle, so sorry for throwing you all in there, and excuse my language in this. What does my stepdad beating the shit out of me have to do with the bigger picture? Sam curled his lips into a smug smile, but the spit that left his tongue revealed his spite. Too much spite. Sam fixed his posture, and as he scorned himself, "You're showing too much spite, Sammy boy. You're unfixable. Remember, unfixable, unfixable, unfixable." That's not what I'm trying to say, Sam, and you know it. Dr. Sullivan removed his glasses from where they were perched on his mousy nose and propped them up on his head. What your stepfather did to you was cruel. It was wrong and heartless, and I can tell it has affected you greatly. Okay, sure. Sam lurched forward and pressed his palms into the lacquered wood of the coffee table. But as my court-mandated doctor, you're supposed to talk about me. Not him, not you, me. And besides, I don't even remember him all that much. For me to get inside of your head, Sam, I need to cut through the hideous jungle your stepfather planted. Try and get inside of my head, Doc. I fucking dare you, Sam thought. You wouldn't last a day inside my head, you stiff little shrink. Do you understand me, Sam? I know it's hard to recollect traumatic memories, and it's even harder to trust someone enough to talk about them, but I'm here to help. I'm here to listen and guide you through it, and together we can burn that jungle down, all right? What if I don't want to burn it? What if I like the coverage it gives me? I'm not about to give up on you, Sam. It's our first session. We have time. Dr. Sullivan had an empathetic smile again, and Sam was waiting for him to write something down in his notepad. When Dr. Sullivan remained staring and smiling, Sam couldn't stop the disappointment rushing into his chest. And I can see how intelligent you are, Sam. You're gifted, and you're smart. I know you don't want to be a permanent resident at this recovery center, and I don't want that for you either. So please, give me something to work with. I'm not talking about my stepdad. I'm not asking you to talk about him. I'm asking you to talk about Sam. I don't want to. Then you won't be released. Dr. Sullivan shrugged as if Sam's condemnation meant nothing to him. That's bullshit. Sam slammed his fist down onto the coffee table, causing it to shake dangerously. Sam began to tremble with his rage when he saw how Dr. Sullivan peered at him curiously and completely unstartled. You can't fucking keep me here, you creepy motherfucker. You sick fucking... I'm not fucking crazy. You're the fucking crazy one, you fuck. You sick piece of shit. I'm not forcing you to stay here, Sam. You signed yourself in. You signed yourself into our care, and that means you cannot leave until we have done our job. Dr. Sullivan's stare into Sam's eyes was stable. The room was quiet except for Sam's labored breathing, heavy and flushed from his fit of anger. Dr. Sullivan made Sam feel like a child. He made Sam feel pathetic for throwing a tantrum in such a professional environment, and that made Sam feel weak. And what is your fucking job, Doc? Sam choked out, his body still tense. To help you. I don't need your help. Then do it yourself, but you can't do it all in there. Dr. Sullivan pointed at Sam's head, and Sam tried to conceal the way he jerked back by pressing his back against the blue corduroy couch. I won't talk. I'll just listen. Let's move on from your stepfather. Talk about something that made you happy. Talk about whatever kept you living for 23 years and why it stopped. Nothing. There was nothing keeping me alive, Sam spit, his face flushed. There can't have been nothing, Sam, Dr. Sullivan sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. I don't want to keep you here, but at this rate, I have no other choice. Sam took a long, shaky breath and turned his head to stare out of the window. He knew he could just pretend to want to get better and then pretend to get better, but Sam was stuck on the morality of it. His fake recovery would defy all of the work he put into how he was perceived, unfixable, unlovable, and incomprehensible. But Sam was desperate to escape this hell he was forced to sign himself into, where around every corner there was another too good or almost too good, promising, begging, yearning to fix him. Sam was unrightfully stuck in a cage full of schizophrenics and psychopaths and addicts who told their secrets to the great Dr. Sullivan and wandered the mental hospital, gone and pondering on their discharge date when they could go home and choose between hugging the family they left behind or relapsing. Sam was not like them. Sam was intelligent and cold and had no family to return to or drugs to relapse on. Sam knew he did not belong there. And Sam knew that on that night, a week before sitting on that blue corduroy couch and looking into Dr. Sullivan's empathetic face, he was meant to die and stay dead. Sam needed to leave, not just to escape the two goods and their stubborn goodness, but to maintain his sanity. I started working in my stepdad's mechanic shop when I was 17. That's where I met Francis. Staring out of the window made it easier for Sam to pretend Dr. Sullivan wasn't there. But out of the corner of his eye, he saw Dr. Sullivan's head nod knowingly. You probably read it in my journal, but Francis was like the sun, I think. So warm, so dazzling, so unlike me. He worked mostly in cars while I stayed behind the front desk, but we'd eat lunch together every day. Sam swallowed the spit left in his mouth and tried to ignore the awful emptiness in his chest that flared up. He was I think he was the only friend I ever had. He was just so kind. Whatever I threw his way, he caught happily. I was so honest with him, so intimate. Sam felt himself smile lightly. A small dove landed on the waving spring green tree outside of the window. I told him about how I almost killed a rooster when I was 15. I wanted to ask you about that incident after reading your journal entry about it. Do you want to talk about that? Dr. Sullivan cut in, displaying his genius with open shoulders and a gentle smile. Sam didn't want to look away from the dove, so he didn't. No, I want to talk about Francis. You said you wouldn't talk, only listen. Sam's voice was softer than it had been the entire session, and Dr. Sullivan nodded apologetically and gestured for Sam to continue. When I told Francis, in full, graphic detail, how I kicked and kicked at that rooster to get it to shut up, all he did was nod like he understood. Kind, devoted Francis nodded like he got what it was like to kick and hit an animal until it stopped fighting and just laid there, waiting for me to finish it all. All because it wouldn't shut up, screaming every hour of the day until it drove me up the fucking wall. And you know what Francis said to me when I begged him to hate me for it? He said, "You gave it mercy, and that shows you're more human than you think." And I just cried in his arms the entire night. I cried like a baby into his arms as he held me. I didn't think I deserved it. I still don't think I deserve that kind of kindness, that affection. But he gave it to me, and he loved me, and I loved him. Sam's chin wobbled, and he bit at his lower lip. Sam was pained. He felt so much pain from his joy that he wondered why he didn't stay angry. Anger was easier, and anger was simpler. For years, Sam tried his hardest to stay angry. But Francis made him so human that it hurt, and like a child, when Sam was pained, he wept. What happened between you and Francis? You speak of him in the past tense. Dr. Sullivan spoke once Sam had been silent for a moment. Sam shook his head and released a wet, gurgling laugh. He left, Sam whispered bitterly. And why'd he leave? Dr. Sullivan pushed, but Sam was too pained to be angry. He missed when he could shout and curse at Dr. Sullivan minutes before. He said it was because of his family. Francis immigrated from Brazil and when he was young, but his family stayed. He told me about his abuela dying and that he had to go back to be with her and his family. When did he tell you this? 6 months ago, on the same night he left. Sam scrubbed his eyes and wiped his nose on the sleeve of his sweater. I was so shocked that I didn't know what to say at first. I just stood there in the doorway of my apartment looking stupid. But when Francis said he was leaving that night, I started begging him to stay. He told me he couldn't, and when I grabbed his hands and asked him to take me with him, he pulled away. He had never pulled away from me before. Not when I told him about the rooster or my stepdad or my mom. Not even when I let my anger slip and I'd scream terrible, terrible things to my apartment walls and to him. But he pulled away then, and before I could say anything else or run after him, he kissed me, right on the mouth. Sam touched his lips, smoothing out the cracks and ghosting his fingertips over the corners. I seem to be missing a page. 1 second. Sorry about that. He kissed you. Was your relationship romantic? Dr. Sullivan asked. Sam could tell the therapist was very intrigued by the story. No, not at least in the normal way. Sam fixed his shoulders and looked at Dr. Sullivan once again. After Francis kissed me, he told me not to kill myself, or rather, get myself killed, but I knew what he meant. He was always able to read my mind, predict my actions. It's like his kiss was a goodbye, as if I was his abuela sick and dying in a hospital bed, and he was kissing me and saying goodbye forever. But you couldn't stand that kind of goodbye, Dr. Sullivan said, his tone matter of fact. No, I couldn't. I told myself I'd wait for him, that he was wrong. I wanted so badly to live until he came back and saw I was doing just fine and things would go back to normal. I tried so hard, Doc. But you're right, I couldn't stand the truth. And what was the truth? Dr. Sullivan pushed again, and Sam welcomed it this time. That without Francis, I was dead. Sam stared blankly into the open space between him and Dr. Sullivan. I was already dead from the moment he walked away from my apartment. Were you angry? No, never at Francis, only at myself. Because I knew I was sucking the life out of him from the day we first met to the last second we were together. I knew he only made me feel human because I was sucking the fucking life out of him. And that's just not a fair thing to do to someone, especially to do it to an angel like Francis. Sam rubbed at his forearms gently, tilting his head to see that the dove had left its branch by the window. Why do you think he stayed so long? He stayed with you so long as he did. You were close for years, I'm assuming, so why did he let you suck the life out of him for so long? Because he was like you. He was like every therapist and nurse here. He wanted to help me. He wanted to fix me and make me good. But he got it all wrong. Sam rested his head against the back of the blue corduroy couch and stared at Dr. Sullivan with the last bits of an exhausted determination. I can't be fixed. My problem can't be taken away or healed because it lives there. It lives there inside of my brain and it will never, ever leave.
Thank you so much, Logan. The winner in our high school writers category is Amaya Tobias. I need my eyes. So Amaya has won with a collection of poems, poems from Internet Therapy Collection. They include a group of 5 poems. Amaya comes to us from the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts and East Jefferson High School. The editors noted about this work that these poems function as a single piece, both as poetry and as flash CNF, with the writer playing with rhythm and sound and meaning in fresh ways. The subject matter cuts to the bone with no flinching. Excellent. Yes, it is excellent.
Every reading
my 4 poems. It's my first time reading in public. The poems are called Poems from Internet Therapy Collection. Can you hear me now? Okay, the poems are called Poems from Internet Therapy Collection. And the first one is called Scared as Hell by Thoughts of Hell. I am scared that I might be going to hell for things I cannot control, like loving other women. So I talk to God for hours about how I can't control it. He never responds. So I'm left searching the internet. Is it a sin to be gay? It says that I am sinning. A woman on YouTube says it might be because I was raped that I fear the love of men. When I say that I still love men, and that a woman touched me too. Someone on TikTok tells me that my brain is severely misconstrued. Childhood sexual assault can leave kids questioning their sexuality. Now I wonder if I am confused, because what if I don't like women? My therapist says I have PTSD, so what if I just fear love from men? I think it might be true. When my male classmate sits beside me, I fear that he might reach over and touch my inner thigh. Then sex pops in my head. I'm left helpless and abused. I think it might be false though, because when I imagine sex with a girl, my chest hurts and I feel nauseous. It's not fun with her either. I asked the internet about that too. Why does imaginative sex always lead to violence? I get articles about BDSM and being developmentally stunted. I asked a different question. How do I get rid of imaginative sexual violence? The internet uses long science words to tell me I am developmentally stunted, and that years in therapy would not fix the problem, but would make it more tolerable. So I cried into my pillow, because I didn't ask for this. I asked the internet, how do I get over being sexually assaulted? It tells me that I am okay and valid. I may suffer from depression, PTSD, eating disorders, substance abuse, anxiety, dissociation, and relationship problems. It says I need therapy. I don't see how I'm okay. Another question. Why does God allow bad things to happen? Because we must learn from our choices. He doesn't stop the actions of others just to help someone else. Instead, he helps us through giving us strength. But I don't fucking feel strong. Why do kids need to go through hell just to make it into heaven? Will God pay for my therapy? I asked the internet, will I go to hell if I kill myself? The answer is no. I feel relief and shut my computer. And the next poem is called Digging in My Gut. I read on the internet that if you don't clean a gunk in your gutters, then it could damage your home's interior. I can prevent extensive clutter by cleaning them regularly. Cleaning debris stops the collecting and clogging of exterior drains. One tear in a rubber membrane can prove disastrous. I must maintain my roof. So, every so often, I go digging in my gut. I dig, 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 dig. And I dig, dig, dig deep. I dig, dig, dig. And I find all kinds of shit. Today, I found procroscopia choking my liver. It was like, look, motherfucker, choke, choke. Get rid of this useless blubber. But then I went and ate a cookie. I guess that's why I'm still fat. I started feeling guilty, so I dug in there some more. I almost broke my rib trying to scratch away bolts. Then I was bearing over the toilet, heaving clunky hopes and tears. So I smashed my brain. I was digging hard to rip away the part that made me care, so I can flush it down the drain. I put my fingers in my ears and I cracked open my skull. I went digging in some more, my brain and guts now on the floor. Finding nothing, I felt defeated. I was down to loose skin, bits and pieces. I mushed my brain back together and swallowed my gunk and bile. Coming back to my bed, I felt empty. I ate another cookie to make myself a whole again. That's the end of the second. The third one is called My Body, My Religion. He was the oldest man to have touched me yet, and he was the first to console me afterwards. I laid in his arms, shivering, scared to move and scared to stay. His arms relentlessly tight around my small, aching body, and his whispers lapping at my skin. I was his greatest sin, and he was scared. I am temptation and the forbidden fruit. It's okay, I got you. Don't tell anyone, okay? It's our secret. By now, I was used to secrets. I was used to sneaky fingers gliding under my covers. I was used to gentle threats and weary glances. I was used to checking doors and quick steps leaving after a visit. I knew how to keep a secret, so I told him okay. The next day, he would now leave me alone. Sitting across from me, his eyes never left my body, slithering permanently into my impressionable mind. He threw his shirt at me. He wasn't so gentle anymore. I knew that he was ashamed to be so strong, yet so weakened by little me. Men prayed to me like Moses for my mercy. They prey on me and molest me and then lust for my forgiveness. I truthfully hold no power. To them, I hold the ability to expose their scathing ways and make them pay, but I pay the most. I am so tied to my mental tithe with no way to escape, an unwilling congregant. God is my only witness, but he does not offer help. If I could be saved, I wish he'd save me from this. Last thing of that. And then the last one is really short. It's just a sentence. It's called hostage. If God were to come down from the heavens and ask me if I would like to move on to end my life, with no drastic measures like suicide, with no repercussions, no guilt, no sad family members or friends, I would say yes.
Thank you, Amaya. So our last category is our short story category. Our judge for this category this year, our final round judge was Lady Hubbard. So Ms. Hubbard is the author of the novels The Talented Ripkins, which received the 2018 Ernest Gaines Award for Literary Excellence, and the Hurston Wright Legacy Award for Debut Fiction, and The Rip King. Her latest book is the story collection The Last Suspicious Holdout. Roxane Gay called her collection fiercely intelligent, warm in their own way, and absolutely absorbing. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Ms. Hubbard's writings have appeared in the Oxford American, Guernica, Virginia Quarterly, and Callaloo, among many others. We were just really graced with the presence of incredible judges, as we have been every year. Ms. Hubbard chose the story Digging by Nick Reese-Gardner as the runner-up. Nick was not able to join us today, so we get to jump straight to the winner, which we're very excited about. The winning story was the story Her Own Kind by Dee Bai. She's the 2022 winner. Lady wrote that the winning story is a well-constructed, emotionally evocative tale about the subtleties of racial and gender violence. I appreciated how the author handles the intricacies of Danny's alienation, her understanding of relationship to her environment, and the careful delineation of the ways self-loathing too often manifests itself as cruelty towards those who remind us of parts of ourselves we may be trying very hard not to think about. Dee joins us from Oxford, Mississippi, where she is also in the creative writing program at Ole Miss. Whatever works for you.
Thank you, Ted, for the introduction. So, this is my short story, Her Own Kind. Her Own Kind. The other Chinese girl rushes into the dance studio 20 minutes late on the first day of school. She explains that it took her forever to find the place, her broken English making her apology humbler than it already is, until Professor Stella pinches her fingers mid-air for the girl to shut up. Lulu fixes her gaze at the mirror, continuing her porte-bras without the slightest sign to acknowledge the new girl's existence. But the girl, after a quick glance around the room, shuffles over and stands behind Lulu at the bar by the window. Plie. Lulu takes a deep, annoyed breath. Grand plie. Only the advanced dancers can claim the window bar, leaving the bars in the middle of the studio for the newbies out of patronization. This is Lulu's junior year in Rosemary College's dance program. She started out at the center and worked her way up to the side, and she hated when random girls walk in and assume they can be like her. By the end of the routine, the dancers turn around, switching to the left side, which gives Lulu a good view of the girl. Chubby, slouching, with long and frizzy hair all over the place. The girl does not even have the common sense to tie her hair up for a dance class. On the girl's feet are a pair of grandma black liners. As the dancers bend forward for a good stretch, the girl almost sticks her saggy ass in Lulu's face. Bars, then center floor. Lulu marches to her Euro spot and the girl follows. Why can't she leave Lulu alone? The dancers tend to poser devant. In the mirror, the girl trips over her leg. Lovely dancers, says Professor Stella. Lulu can only assume that Professor Stella is selectively blind, because the girl is nowhere near lovely. As the music proceeds, the girl changes her strategy. She holds her arms in a deliberate, flappy way, as if her clumsy moves come from laziness instead of incompetency. Her half-hearted attempt reminds Lulu of chip nail polish. Lulu does not allow for chip nails. Once a single nail peels, she removes the color from all 10 fingers. Beautiful, says Professor Stella. She gives the dancers a water break. As the dancers scatter around, the girl shoots a tentative smile at Lulu, who turns her face away. Lulu tells Faith, I'm donating my blood on Monday. Really? Faith, the devout blonde, tried to take Lulu to Sunday service. She has casually mentioned to Lulu 3 times that the church offers free meals. You went last time, Lulu says, very inspiring. She hopes the answer gratifies Faith, especially after Faith failed to set up Lulu and Jesus. Faith pulls Lulu into a hug, stands Lulu's top with sweat. I'm so happy for you. Dancers, says Professor Stella, let's do chasse, balancé, pas de bruit, and chasse across the room, end with a leap of your choice, 2 at a time. Lulu pairs up with Faith and finally gets rid of the new girl, who is hiding at the end of the line. After finishing the combo, Lulu leans on the bar to watch the girl stumble across the floor. Something about the girl's disoriented limbs reminds Lulu of a remote afternoon from her kindergarten, when she held a magnifying glass over a garden ant. The burning smell filled Lulu's pumping little heart with a serene sense of accomplishment. Rosemary College locates in a predominantly white town in Virginia, where the nearest ethnic restaurant that attempts authenticity is half an hour away and called Andy Chang, which, as the name implies, is a knockoff of P.F. Chang. Being blue is one of the few things that Rosemary College holds dear, especially when the campus lies close to a flamboyantly rich Christian university. The university president urges his students to carry concealed weapons and end the Muslim before they walk in. Only the bad Muslims, he clarifies. There are many good Muslims, you know what I mean. Lulu's college dignifies itself with a well-mannered apathy towards the fact that the Christian university basically owns the town, and that the university is nibbling down Rosemary with each passing day. Last year, the university bought off the peerage when Rosemary downgraded environmental studies from a major to a minor. This year, the 130-acre field from the withering equestrian team. Lulu and her friends, however, keep their chins up because their college voted for Hillary instead of Trump. And Lulu will never forget the tears, curses, and collective breakdowns on the election night. Professors canceled class the next morning, and students woke up in the afternoon with massive hangovers, all grieving the fall of the United States. The election attributed Rosemary's decline to something more tragic and heroic than the school itself. When the dining hall switched to a cheaper food provider that also catered to the local prison, there were not many protesters among the students because they knew they were suffering along with the rest of America. Lulu and her friends chewed the cold pizza and undercooked pasta, and they carried the freshman 15 with silent patriotism. After finishing her floppy omelet, Lulu hurries over to the dance studio while holding in a greasy burp. When she rushes down the final few stairs, there's the new girl again, standing at the door and struggling with the knob. The girl turns around at the sound of Lulu's footsteps and says, slightly out of breath, 门是锁的。The 4 Chinese syllables catch Lulu off guard. While Americans always assume Lulu is Korean, her own people still spot her, speaking the mother language to her face no matter how fluent Lulu's English is. Lulu feels like being tagged in hide and seek. 4 syllables are enough to turn her into it. She reaches for the doorknob in silence and she feels the moist warmth left by the girl. The trick is to press the knob real hard before turning it left. Lulu opens the door and walks straight in without holding it for the girl behind. But the girl fails to pick up on the most obvious hint. She follows Lulu inside and speaks Chinese again in a room full of white dancers. 我叫山诗韵，你叫什么? So that is the girl's name, 诗韵珍. Lulu wonders if things will be better if the girl goes by a name like Sukla or Suyong, with an easily recognizable Japanese or Korean origin. But no, the girl could have come from any other Asian country, Vietnam, Singapore, Thailand, yet she comes from China, and there's no version purer than what Lulu feels for another Chinese. Madeline winks at Lulu while stretching her legs on the floor. You found yourself a language partner? Madeline is the short and clueless brunette. She has trained in ballet for 13 years and still gets yelled at by Professor Stella for leaving the rubber band on her wrist during dance concerts. Lulu replies, everyone on campus is my language partner. What were you saying to Lulu? Madeline asks the girl. The girl opens her mouth, but Lulu cuts her off. We speak English when the majority in the room are native English speakers. Lulu said in a volume loud enough to bring color into the girl's face. It's basic etiquette. She wonders if the girl even knows the word etiquette, but the girl shuts her mouth like a goldfish. Lulu turns back to Madeline. Do you have an extra rubber band I can borrow? Madeline proudly shows her wrist to Lulu. Anytime. Thanks, love. Lulu has never called Madeline love before, but Madeline does not seem to fully appreciate the honor. Lulu conceals her annoyance by turning to Faith, who is doing leg swings by the bar. Faith, quick question. Should I eat breakfast before the blood draw? Eat for sure, and water, lots and lots of water. Stay hydrated. Last time I went, Madeline said in a dreamy tone, the nurses told me I was too tiny. Maybe you'll grow a few inches before graduation, Faith says. That's what happened to my cousin. You can go through a second puberty. You know what we should do, Lulu said abruptly. Black Leotard Friday. On Black Friday, we all wear black leotards. Sounds fun, echoes Madeline. The new girl sits in silence. She must be hating and admiring Lulu at the same time. What is pathetic about Chinese people is that if you can't win the love from the Caucasians, you can't win the respect from your own race. While the girl keeps her mouth shut, Lulu goes on and on like a radio that refuses to be turned off. Inside the health center, a thick-shouldered nurse sits in front of the computer, the reflection of the screen light making her powdered face look dry. She asks Lulu, have you been outside of the United States and Canada in the past 12 months? Yes, Lulu answers. She wonders if that renders her blood unsanitary. Where have you been? China. I went back home over the summer. Which part of China? Beijing. The nurse types on the keyboard with 2 index fingers like a mantis. Your height? 170 centimeters, about 5 feet 7. And weight? 57 kilograms. I don't know how much that is in pounds. The nurse turns to a man sitting nearby. What's 57 kilograms in pounds? I don't know. You Teresa, how many pounds is 57 kilograms? Someone pulls out the calculator on their phone. That's like 125 pounds. 125, Julie. Uh-huh, says the nurse sitting in front of Lulu. How about some privacy? There's no need to broadcast Lulu's weight across the hall, but clearly no one thinks she would mind. 125 pounds at 5'7", light enough for the American South, not enough for China. Back in China, Lulu never donated blood. Studying abroad changes people, bringing out the virtues Lulu had never shown before. Nowadays, she nags her roommates to recycle trash and drops her less successful outfits at Goodwill. Nurse Julie leads Lulu to an empty bed. When Lulu lies down and watches the plum-colored blood being drawn from her arm, she feels cold. But in a few weeks, she will receive an email notifying her where the blood has been received, in Richmond or Charlottesville, even Washington, D.C. She likes the idea that her genes are out there invading America, one needle stake at a time. After the blood draw, Lulu heads to the dance studio wearing a red bandage on her elbow like a gallantry medal. She runs into Logan Miller on the staircase, and she walks right past him. They dated during her freshman year, briefly. By the time they broke up, he had coaxed her into going down on him, and 2 years later, he still looks at her in the same unscrupulous way when she put her mouth near his zipper. Lulu shakes her head like she's shooing a fly. She needs a distraction from the negativity, and as soon as she walks into the locker room, Lulu pinpoints her target. It is the third week of school, and the new girl has finally learned to avoid eye contact with Lulu. When Lulu adjusts her leotard stripes, the girl starts conversations with the other dancers, but her tongue gets lost in her accent until she falls back into silence. The duller the girl appears, the livelier Lulu feels, as if the soil is only fertile enough for one of them to blossom. Lulu does an impression of Professor Stella, which cracks up the room, while the girl shrinks deeper into the wall corner. This is what the girl gets for trespassing. Before her arrival, the only other student with a Chinese surname at Rosemary College was Amy Liu, who was made in America and carries on her legacy by ordering Panda Express 3 times a week. Amy narrows her scope of activities to the computer lab, where she puts all-nighters to play League of Legends, thus leaving the dance scene to Lulu. In fact, Lulu was the only foreigner among Stella girls. There was once a Nigerian dancer in the program, but by midterm she was missing half of the classes. Lulu was not bothered by the black girl's disappearance. She likes being the one and only diversity girl, sliding across the spacious room in silk ballet slippers. When the dancers do their bar routine, Lulu prides herself on staying paler than most of her sun-kissed classmates. In unison, they cast long and lean shadows on the wooden floor. Now the new girl has taken away the uniqueness of Lulu's skin. Lulu spells Shi and Zhang on social media but finds nothing. It is not until days later that Lulu figures out the girl has registered with her English name. Sapphire. That is the ridiculous name the girl has given herself. In Sapphire Zhang's Instagram bio, she puts a Chinese flag and an American flag side by side. Red flag next to the stars and stripes. How desperate. 3 weeks in the States and the girl cannot wait to mark the country as her own. In her retaliation, Lulu giggles and gossips more than ever in dance class. On some days, she almost enjoys the girl's existence. What is the point of a performance if there's no audience? Whenever the girl is around, life pours out of every pore in Lulu. Her dimples deepen, her eyes light up. She wonders if she has grown half an inch because she feels taller in the mirror. She gets herself into a relationship. Christopher from the tennis team. He has messy hay-colored hair and the nervous chuckles of a high schooler. Lulu has asked him for rides twice, and now they're Facebook official. He waits outside the studio to escort her. They hold hands until they are out of sight of the other dancers. Then she lets go of his surprisingly soft and sweaty palm, which fails her expectations for masculinity. By October, Professor Stella adds fondue to the bar routine. On foggy autumn mornings, the pronunciation reminds Lulu of fondue with a cheesy sensation. When the class is over, Lulu makes a curtsy to Professor Stella, who says, "You feel different from last year. Do you prefer the new me?" "You seem happier," Professor Stella says. "I wonder what happened." Lulu tells her head to the side. Finally got over my jet lag, I suppose. Rosemary College does not have fraternities. The cliques refer to themselves as secret society. On Saturday night, Chris takes Lulu to a party in the dorm of some ginger called Rory. Lulu is surprised to see the other Chinese girl in the room, and she frowns at Chris. I thought this party was exclusive. It is, he promises. She smells the alcohol in his breath. Then why is she here? Lulu asks. Chris replies with a blank stare. It does not take Lulu long to find out that the Chinese girl is Rory's roommate. When the girl came back from the library, she found a crowded room with 3 people making out on her bed. This answer satisfies Lulu. She returns to Chris, grabs the beer from him. You've had enough. She forces a reluctant nod out of Chris before turning her eyes back to the girl. The girl, however, is not sitting alone anymore. Logan Miller appears out of thin air and tells her his favorite joke, which involves 3 chicas and 1 bartender. His attention prods the girl into flipping her hair in a way that sickens Lulu. And when Logan turns around, it is too late for Lulu to take her eyes back. He puts his arm around the girl's chair and shoots Lulu a look. Watch me. Watch how easy it is to hook up with a Chinese girl. Why did she ever date him? Lulu knows she should go easier on her younger self, considering back then she had barely turned 18 and landed in America with a head full of white knight fantasies. She broke things off with Logan when she went through his phone and saw him texting Amy Liu. It did not shock Lulu that he was talking to another girl. What irritated her was the fact that Amy never even texted back. Now Amy could always look down at Lulu with a loving sympathy, thinking Lulu only got to keep her sleazy boyfriend at Amy's mercy. Amy Liu, why did it have to be Amy Liu? Lulu wished Logan had texted any other girl, the normal ones, his own kind, even Mary Campbell with eyes too far apart that gave away her stupidity. Just to prove that he did not have an Asian fetish. But seeing him with the new girl, Lulu believes something is inherently wrong with Logan. Or why did he prey only the yellow girls if he could get around with his own race? In the corner of her eyes, Lulu watches Logan handing a pocket flask to the girl. When the girl drinks and wipes her mouth on her sleeve, she looks like she is about to vomit, but eventually manages a timid smile. Logan laughs. He whispers something into the girl's ear, then he helps her up, helps her out of the room. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Lulu's eyes move between her phone and the clock on the wall like a ping-pong match. Chris is sprawled on a cotton candy pink poof with eyes half closed, smacking his lips when Lulu gives his shoulder a nudge, so she leaves the room without him. She does not find Logan and the girl anywhere in the hallway or in the closest restroom stall. At the end of the hall, there is a door leading to the parking lot. Lulu pushes it open, dives into the chilly night, moths are flying under the streetlight. Before she goes back to the party, slight noises catch her attention. Something is happening at the far end of the parking lot. Lulu walks over, hugging herself against the cold, wishing that she had brought her jacket. There they are. At first, Lulu can't tell what is happening. But then she recognizes 2 figures struggling in the darkness. One is holding the other down in the narrow space between a Volvo and a Jeep. The girl turns her head at Lulu, who freezes by the lamppost with a ghostly pale face. 救救我! Help! Lulu stands paralyzed until Logan turns his bloodshot eyes to her. Fuck off! Lulu obeys. She backs away into the shadow. Then she runs. She runs until she enters her dorm and locks the door. After catching her wrist to stop it from shaking, Lulu calls the RA and reports a party that has gone past the quiet hours. If the girl was anyone else, Lulu would have called the police. But what has the girl done to deserve Lulu's wholehearted rescue? No one has forced the girl to party, drink, or follow Logan into the night, just like no one grabbed Lulu's hair to press her tongue between his thighs. 2 minutes later, she dials the RA again. The same yawning voice answers, "We're on it." When Lulu dials for the third time, no one picks up. She goes through every Snapchat and Instagram account of the secret society members for updates. Selfie, selfie, selfie caption lit with flame stickers. Selfie. The on again, off again campus Wi-Fi traps Lulu with the picture of Rory sticking her tongue out, cleavage spilling out of her low-cut top. When the internet finally refreshes and Rory's fake barbell tongue ring is out of sight, Lulu finds a Twitter calling the RA bitch. So she assumes the party is over 24 minutes after she fled from the parking lot. Lulu wonders if the girl was a virgin 25 minutes ago. Now is a good time for the girl to regret her lazy attitude in the dance studio. Better to break her hymen for splits than saving it for Logan. Then Lulu realizes that she is thinking out loud, repeating the same sentences as a theatrical monologue. She does not stop. Hearing her cruelty drives away her quivers, warming up her throat like a cup of instant coffee. She hears no gossip over the weekend. Monday comes and the girl is missing from the studio. When the class ends, Professor Stella stops Lulu on her way out. You don't look well. It relieves Lulu that Professor Stella does not mention the new girl's absence like Madeline did, as if one Chinese is supposed to know the other Chinese whereabouts. Lulu is tempted to deny Professor Stella's observation, but this woman with silver hair has the distant and sympathetic eyes of an old horse. All faculty are mandated reporters, and Lulu wonders what will happen to Logan if she turns him in. Jail, or at least expulsion. She has never expected that she could use another girl to get rid of him. This possibility tickles the inside of her stomach. I'm concerned, adds Professor Stella. Lulu thinks of all the likes a MeToo hashtag can harvest these days. It would be nice to step up and defend someone else. She can have the same sense of participation with no scars. I saw something, Lulu says, forcing a touch of pain into her voice. Thank you, I'll stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dee. And thank you to everybody who read today, to all of our winners and runners-up. Please give them all another round of applause.